Hello and welcome to another episode of my vlog. This is Rishad D'Cruz and today we're going to talk about land scams and how they work in Goa. Now, this video benefits two kinds of people. The first is landlords, Goan landlords who are living in Canada, in America, in Australia, who are living in Dubai, who've left Goa, who've left their properties. And the second is someone who is genuinely interested in buying property, and they look at the paperwork, or the lawyer or the broker says, sir, the papers are clear, and then they buy the property and make a big mistake. Okay, so a very interesting episode. So what are the ways that these scams work, and what kind of scams are they? The first is the resurrection trick. Okay, resurrection means raising the dead. The crooks identify a plot, extract the form 1 and 14. Now you can extract the ownership title, basic, the form 1 and 14 from the government website. Okay, I'll put that website up for you later. So let's assume the owners on the form 1 and 14 are Mr. Peter and Maria D'Souza. Okay, hypothetically speaking, both have expired, but now they're resurrected by the dodgy lawyers who create fake documents and say that they were declare them interstate or unmarried or without children. Then an inventory is done by the lawyer and his associates, creating a sale deed or a will or a MOU with a new party. So for example, he says like Mr. D'Souza is this is Mr. D'Souza, okay, although the real Mr. D'Souza is dead because he creates a fake ID for this Mr. X gentleman, and fake Mr. D'Souza signs saying that, you know what, I'm very much alive. My wife is dead though, but I'm single and I don't have children. And he signs it, the sale deed, with say Mr. Khanna Holdings sitting in Delhi for 50 lakhs. Okay. Once Mr. Khanna buys it, then the sale deed is gone through. It's in the records that now Mr. Peter has sold it to Mr. Khanna for 50 lakhs. And the court accepts it. And what happened? Mr. Khanna, who is again a stooge of the broker lawyer network, sells it to Mr. Karorpati business wala sitting in Delhi for 5 crores. Right? Meanwhile, the heirs in Canada and UK come back one Christmas for holiday and they say, hey, this is very interesting. This was our plot, but there's a beautiful old house there. What's happening? This is what's happened. So there is a nexus between some dodgy lawyers, some dodgy brokers who keep an eye out for properties that are vacant. Then they go into the history of the property. They realize, oh, this property has been vacant for 15 years, 20 years. The family is abroad. Okay, let's do our work. And this whole process generally takes them about a year, but in that year they end up selling the property to some unknown person who's actually also a victim. So that's the resurrection trick. Next is the squatting or munkar trick. Okay, so generally this is someone who's in league with the panchayat. So these guys, they go around the villages and they look out for vacant plots. And what they do sometimes, especially in the outskirts, landlords have large tracts of land. So what these guys do, they put up a small hut. Also, you see this with a lot of church property. Many people have, many churches all over Goa have lost property like this. Some local identifies a church property and puts a small hut there, usually with the help of a punch. A punch is one of the member of the panchayat, and then he rents that out. He also gets the electricity connection. He pulls the wire. They make a hole in the road on the weekend, usually when no one is around, and then they cement it, but they pass the wire through, and then they give that hut electricity connection. The moment there's a hut with electricity connection, there are people there, so usually they get these laborers from Karnataka to stay there. Then removing them becomes a humanitarian issue, right? So these guys are very smart. They play the system against the system. And then what can you do? You can't kick them out. So suddenly you'll see, you come to your property and you see there's someone already living there, or there's a hut built and you can't vacate them. It becomes a massive issue, and in some cases these dodgy guys insert their names into the Form 1 and 14. So you'll see, for example, D'Souza, 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 and then you'll see some Yallappa or Kallappa or something like that. That's usually the sign of something fishy. And this person who's entered the property will extort money from the original owners and say, hey, listen, your property is worth 5 crores. You can't sell it without me moving out my people. Therefore, you have to give me 1 crore or 2 crores. So sometimes they want all the money, and I know people who have squatted who want more than the landlord. So you want to watch out for that. So that's 2. Third trick is blocking access. Again, very, very, very common. It's an age-old trick used by unscrupulous people in Goa. They identify a plot. They either buy or they squat in a plot next to it with the help of thugs, and they block access of that plot. So for example, you have one plot here and one plot here. These guys, they'll kind of block access of this plot, and they'll put a fence around your access. Now, I have friends who are very dear friends of mine who are from Delhi, and they bought this lovely 9,000 square meter plot in Moira. And unfortunately, some unscrupulous locals in connection with, I don't want to give out too much information, but because we're in the process of resolving this, but people have got together and they've blocked the access of this larger plot, and they want money. Obviously, they want to extort money from the owners, and this goes up even into government levels. So it's a process for these genuine people who bought the land to really use the land to build a beautiful house, and it's frustrating. What's really annoying is that the crooks who've squatted or who've put fences around and stopped the real owners put trespassing cases on the owners. So that's blocking access. That's the third trick. Then is land grabbing. This is another trick that neighbors use, especially neighbors, because they notice, the property is not fenced or not bounded. The owners are sitting somewhere in Canada, in US, UK. They move the fence or they build their wall 2, 3, 4 meters over a long strip, and that results in thousands of square meters into the neighbor's property. So when someone comes to sell it, they survey the boundaries, and they superimpose the surveyor's report on the site plan, which is in the government. You realize, hey, there's a discrepancy. So that's why I always say get a survey plan done. People spend crores on buying properties, and when I say spend 1.5 to 2 lakhs on a title report, they start counting their pennies. Anyway, they are lost. So yeah, this is the other way people scam in land. Then you have a zoning change. Now this is more of a government level. I don't think there's really someone sitting there saying that we'll identify this plot. No, it generally works for larger tracts. So if you own like hundreds of acres, then the chances are the government may just suddenly put yours into forest or into agriculture, and you'll be none the wiser until you start applying for planning permission. The power of attorney trick, again, very common and used blatantly, and nobody is wiser for this. Who suffers are the landlords. Okay. So what happens is generally brokers go around and they identify a plot with some old people or families living abroad, and they offer to buy it. They say, listen, they come in their fancy cars and they say, listen, we are interested in buying a plot. Okay, so the old couple will say, fine, we want 1 crore for it. So these people say, 1 crore, I'll give you 1 crore. And they give them 5% of the money, right? 5 lakhs. And they lock them into an MOU, that's a memorandum of understanding, that they are going to sell the property. And they say, we need 1 month of time to get our finances together, to organize the bank loans, etc. So this poor unsuspecting old couple says, fine. These guys, the buyers, potential buyers, don't have the money, they don't have the 1 crore, but they have the paper now saying that without their approval, this poor old family cannot sell their property on. And they take this and they go to some rich Mr. Crorepati business wala sitting in Delhi and says, sir, we have this property, it's worth 5 crores, do you want it? So the Crorepati business wala says, done, let's go have a look at it, very nice. And then he finds out through his lawyer that these guys are not the owners, they are the MOU holders, and that 4 crores are going to them in cash. Horrible, absolutely dreadful, and many deals fall through because of this. So you want to be careful. Of course, there are some guys who are good and they do a lot of homework. So they identify a property that's for example, has issues. They pay the owners some money, and then they spend their money doing up the property, doing up the paperwork, and they get it ready to sell. In this case, it makes sense for the Crorepati business wala to give him the money and to buy the property. Okay, it's a fair deal. So, what is my advice to sellers, landlords in Goa? Take your property matters very seriously. Stop infighting with your family. Consolidate your titles. Get a good lawyer. Get a good title report. If you have a family member sitting in Goa who's doing more work, who's doing the legwork, give him 10 to 15% more. Be okay with that. That's called sweat equity in business. Okay? Don't be a miser and start thinking in a better way. Secondly, lose your ego. In Goa, we have this thing of being a bhatkar, being a landlord. It's the equivalent of being a thakur, a zamindar in the rest of India, right? They want that title. So, listen, newsflash, nobody cares about that anymore, okay? So while you're holding on to that useless title, someone without an ego, but with a shrewd brain, is stealing your property from under your nose. If you are living in Dubai, Canada, London, and you not doing anything with that property, someone is going to take over someday, somehow. So either sell it or put somebody there to look after the property, plant some fruit-bearing trees, contribute in some way, or build a house, or sell part of it and use the other part to make it into a garden, or build a house, or something that you're giving back to Goa. Otherwise, be prepared to lose everything for your bhatkar title and for your ego. What about advice to people who want to buy? Again, buying in Goa, you drive around Goa, you will see 30 to 40% empty properties. You drive around the capital city, you will see buildings that are just there and unfinished. Most of that is because of egoistic landlords who are infighting, or someone who's bought a property but has got some issues. So get a good lawyer. Contact me. My email is rishaddecruz.com, rishaddecruz@gmail.com, and my website is rishaddecruz.com. I will put you onto a good team. You will spend 1, 2, 3 lakhs maybe on buying a property, but that due diligence money will be well spent. Even after you spend the 1, 2, 3 lakhs, we may tell you at the end, after doing our study, we may say, hey, listen, don't buy this property. So you've not lost that 2, 3 lakhs. You've actually saved 3, 4 crores. Just think about that. So due diligence is very important. And I think you have to avoid just being, foolhardy and being taken for a ride by your emotions and by certain brokers. Be careful. There are a few brokers who are very good, who are very professional, but there are some who will sell you anything to get that brokerage. So fortunately, over the years, I've managed to collect a few brokers who've become friends, who are very trustworthy and reliable. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me, and I hope this video has helped. I know it will upset a few people, but it will benefit a lot more. Thank you for watching. This is Rishad De Cruz, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.